Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Pickering, and I'm the Volunteer and Community Development Worker here at Wessex Community Action. And I'd like to wish you a warm welcome to be able to join us for the second day of our 2022 Voluntary Sector Expo for Wiltshire. The Expo has been put together by Wessex Community Action to showcase the great work that the charity and voluntary sector organisations do in delivering frontline services, support and activities and events for residents in Wiltshire. The Expo is an opportunity for anyone and everybody to get a full flavour of the length and breadth of the sector and the massive contribution the sector makes to civil society. We've got 35 organisations contributing during the 4 days, and more will be posted on our Wessex Community Action YouTube channel. As you know, many in the sector, especially those smaller and grassroots organisations, are the backbone of the community, and without them, their services would be keenly missed. As the Council for Voluntary Services in Wiltshire, we're hoping that the Expo will help connect the voluntary groups across the county by developing partnership and collaboration, leadership and advocacy, training and development, volunteering and practical help and support that will help you find out how you can connect with the sector too. I hope you find the Expo raises both your understanding and knowledge of the sector and the amazing work done by staff and volunteers across Wiltshire. And view this Expo as a celebration too of all the amazing services, activities and support that they offer. Okay, so to start off this afternoon, we're going to be hearing from Nikki Matthews, who is the marketing manager at Elaborate, and then Sue Denmark, the volunteer coordinator from Care Home Volunteers. We then have Samantha Wilson, who's the digital and communications manager for Carer Support Wiltshire, and she will be joined by Jackie Radford for questions after the presentation. And then finally we have John Truss, so the programmes manager for Age UK Wiltshire. Okay, so moving swiftly forward, I'm now going to hand you over to Nikki Matthews from Elaborate for her presentation.
So thank you so much. Very great thanks to Wessex Community Action for obviously putting this event together. It's lovely to be here and meet some new friends virtually this afternoon. So I just wanted to give you a quick overview really about ourselves as a charity and sort of answer any questions that people might have and so on and so forth. But just quickly, I'm going to run through my presentation. Do shout if I go on too long, please, Anita. So Elaborate is a charity which is fundamentally supporting vulnerable, homeless and marginalised people in our community. We aim to transform their lives by providing accommodation and helping them to gain the skills, confidence and the opportunities to once again live a fulfilled life. So we started actually whoops, let me just find why that's not working. Bear with, I've got zoomed bits in the way. So we started over in 30 years ago. It's actually our 30th anniversary this year, and we started in Salisbury, and Salisbury is very much our spiritual home. However, now we have grown to providing over 75 homes in total, which you can see from the map there, extend all the way from Colwyn Bay up in the north of Wales, all the way down to Plymouth, across to Portsmouth, and throughout sort of Gloucestershire as well. So as I say, our spiritual home is really Salisbury, where we place a lot of emphasis, and obviously where our headquarters are currently on the Churchville Industrial Estate. So we provide 75 homes in total, supporting homeless young people, young parents and their babies, homeless people, ex-service veterans as well from any of the tri-services, and also those with learning difficulties too. We provide a warm place to call home, and we aim to work on the root causes of homelessness to ensure that clients are able to leave homelessness behind them for good. That's our first property there in, which is Barnabas House, which was established in 1992, and we still use that property today. The reality is for the homeless community is that there's actually 1,200 people died last year in the UK whilst homeless in the UK, which was actually sadly a 32% increase from the previous year. Obviously, we've had an awful lot of changes throughout COVID and the pandemic, and there's been a lot of changes, obviously, as a result of government input during that time. But also as cuts to mental health, drug and alcohol and housing services have also, taken that toll during that period as well, and continue to do so today. Why do people refer to us? Well, it can be for many multiple reasons, but the 5 top ones are for substance misuse, obviously drugs and alcohol being a lot of that, antisocial behaviour, also criminal offence, quite often mental health issues, and some of these, will be multiple reasons as well, not necessarily one per time, and also those struggling with debt. In total, we supported 1,389 people across our services last year, and this year it will probably be a lot more. What we aim to do, though, is to enable people to move on from their situation so that they can move again back into independent living, holding down a tenancy of their own, and providing their own income. And we're proud to say that 89% of our homeless residents in the last couple of years have been able to do that. Why is homelessness such an issue? Well, addressing homelessness is vital, obviously, both for the human, but also the financial cost. It's estimated that per case, in other words, per individual, it costs in the region of over £20,000 in the UK over 12 months in other sundry services that are actually affiliated to us. So, for example, homelessness places enormous pressure on the healthcare systems, the mental health services, on the criminal justice system, and social care services, to name a few. So it's imperative that when we support somebody from taking them, if they've been evicted from a tenancy, or if they've been street homeless, for example, that we enable them to have the tools which will enable them to not have to be a drain on any of those other services in future years. On average, a homeless person stays with us for 6 to 12 months. There's actually local authority caps on the amount of support that we're able to provide them. So it's imperative that we get them into independent living as soon as possible, so that they have that still available as a support mechanism. We also pride ourselves on doing an awful lot of work with young people and young parents. A lot of that includes care leavers, those leaving the care system. So following, another reasons why they may refer to us is following a life in care. There's often frequent moves between foster cares and supported accommodation. Quite often people come to us through parental eviction. And also there's a small belief still that supported accommodation is the quickest way to achieve social housing tenancies as well. Quite often, sadly, there's abuse from family members, often where there's alcohol or substance dependency as well. Quite often, some people, particularly during COVID, actually, young people came to us because they were in inability to sustain their own private tenancy with the difficulty that put on the jobs market. And also we deal with asylum seekers entering the UK as well. Again, 89% of our people, young people that is, successfully move on into independent living. And on average, a young person will stay with us for 9 to 12 months. Another fundamental part of our service is our Homes for Veterans service, which started in the last 20 years. And again, this is still something that's very, very much needed by society, as latest estimates indicate between 100 and 400 armed forces veterans sleep rough every year, with a further 300 to 4,000 to 4,000 actually facing homelessness. Quite often what we don't see is the hidden cost of homelessness. In other words, the hidden homeless who are sleeping in cars, in their vans, in derelict buildings, or what we call sofa surfing, going from house to house, friend to friend, couch to couch. obviously something that nobody should have to experience. Reasons particularly are unique perhaps to veterans insofar as, those coming out of service obviously struggle with mental health issues quite often. They may well have been discharged from military correction training facilities or indeed prison. Quite often there's evidence of substance abuse, either drugs or alcohol. Another big reason is family breakdown, actually, which causes an awful lot of turmoil. And they can obviously be medically discharged as well, which can cause some difficulties adjusting to, civvy street again. In the last couple of years, we've supported over 280 homeless veterans across our service, but all of those veterans that we support have been homeless in any of those manners that I've just mentioned. 89% again of our veterans have moved on to independent living. We also, weirdly enough, we set up in 2020, in March 2020, we opened our mental health service at Riverside House, which is on Churchville's industrial estate, which we could never have seen it coming, but obviously COVID had a big impact on that. So Riverside Sanctuary provides a free mental health telephone support line, and also now I'm pleased to say a drop-in centre. Obviously we had to stop that during COVID, for people with mental health needs 7 days a week. This is a self-referral thing, so if people are struggling, they can self-refer and get some free support. We also, last year, set up our first 4-bedroom home in Chippenham, which provides supported long-term residential service for those who experience mental health crises, and enables them to have some respite care as they put their lives back together. Again, reasons people refer to us can be self-referral, as I mentioned. They can be obviously internal service users from the rest of our services that Elaborate provides. We also take referrals from the mental health service, the local authority, and also probation services too. Picture here of Riverside Sanctuary. Last year, actually the year before, sorry, we supported over nearly 8,000 support calls were made by our Riverside Sanctuary mental health team during the COVID pandemic. One of the first areas that we introduced was our learning disabilities care, and we have 2 development centres people may know, may be familiar with. We have Old Sarum Garden Centre, and we also have Barford Development Centre in the village of Barford. We provide supported accommodation for those with learning disabilities, and we also support with care in the community as well. The reasons our learning disability clients refer to us is obviously fundamentally so they can develop independent living skills, also to live as part of a community, to build friendships in a supportive environment, and whilst undertaking some meaningful daytime activities at one of the development centres, and developing new creative skills and vocational training as well. We have a couple of things which we've developed in the last 18 months or so, which are social enterprise things, which basically are bolt-on services, I suppose, to our core offering, which support both the veteran community with outdoor activities, and also sort of our young people services. And then we have Field Kitchen, which is a small commercial enterprise where we have a converted horse box, and the veterans create pizzas and sell them to their local community. That's fundamentally working in North Wales at the moment. And finally, we have our Veterans Self-Build service. Now, this is something which is really quite unique. It's built upon a long-established organisation, but in recent years, we've developed a number of housing initiatives where armed forces veterans have been able to come back into a jobs market and learn new skills in construction particularly, and actually build their own homes as part of a housing development and affordable housing schemes that we've worked with local building providers. We have just opened a new one up at Luggershaw in Wiltshire, which is providing 15 homes over a 5-year period for veterans who wish to effectively build their own home, quite literally. So that's very exciting. And we've done a recent project down in Plymouth, which is very much underway. And we also opened one up in Hereford in the middle of the pandemic, in actual fact. So how do we do all this? Well, we actually have to raise probably over £1.5 million a year. So I know that sounds an awful lot. And we do this by obviously through grants and through trusts. And we also do an awful lot of events where we invite people to come along and fundraise for us whilst enjoying an experience of some certain things. We've worked up at, our Big Sleep is something some local people may be familiar with. We've run that now at Salisbury Cathedral for the last 14 years. And we've recently taken the Big Sleep in the last 2 years to both the Tower of London and run one there, and also up at Grich Castle, which is Wales, which was the home of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. And we were up there just this April. We also undertake various other things such as the firewalks and sort of abseiling. Obviously, it's been really impacted throughout COVID in terms of the sort of activities we've been able to do. And so, you know, that's always and remains a big challenge for the fundraising and marketing team here. So what's the next steps? Well, I mean, I hope that that's given you an understanding a little bit more about how we, you know, work, and maybe there's some synergy with some of the other organisations here attending this afternoon, or you may know of others. Obviously, as an individual, you're welcome to join us. It would be great to see, you know, you perhaps help us with some of our, or undertake some of our fundraising activities, but also volunteering as well is such a huge part of what we do. We could not do anything like what we've been able to do without the great support of our volunteering team. So we have in the region of sort of 300 to 400 volunteers, all supporting our services in anything from sort of landscaping to, you know, hairdressing, to helping with cooking workshops, to, you know, just being a befriender, all sorts of things. So there's a couple of volunteer coordinators who work with the team on that. We obviously have a couple of shops in town, and one up in Amesbury and another in Wilton. So, you know, the volunteers are really the lifeblood of our organisation in many respects. So it's great to sort of be able to share that with everybody here. So that's fundamentally my presentation. It's nice to be able to share that with you, and I look forward to learning more about your own. So are there any questions or anything of that nature?
Yeah, thank you, Nikki. That was a really brilliant presentation. It's clear to see how important the services that you provide. For me personally, I'm quite shocked. 32% increase in deaths for homeless people. Yeah. Is a huge rise, and I can see there being a bigger demand for your service. So moving on to questions and answers, I'm now going to hand you over to my colleague Anita, who will pose you the questions coming in.
Hi Nikki, thank you for your presentation. So there's a question in about what typically happens to a person when they leave your service, if there is something that is typical, but do you follow up? Do you get any sort of feedback as to what happens?
Well, it does vary depending on, you know, their individual circumstances, but basically I suppose we see our role as fundamentally to enable them to manage their own tenancy. And their own finances, get on top of, I mean, it'll vary, but get on top of their debt, their mental health issues, and so on and so forth. So a lot of the work involves signposting to other organisations, such as, you know, dealing with drug and alcohol addictions, that sort of thing, but also enabling them to manage their own finances. And sort of get that support that they need, perhaps if there's historic debt and so on and so forth. But yeah, our move on is really a case of they've moved on, and that means that they're able to actually live in their own independent accommodation, and that will be through local authority or housing association in the main.
Excellent, thank you. And you have a huge number of volunteers that support the work that you do. How can people find out about volunteering with you, and what sort of opportunities do you have for people that are interested in volunteering?
Yeah, I mean, that's a funny one. You know, people often think, you know, what sort of job could I do volunteering? To be honest, you can do anything. Everybody's got transferable skills of something. You know, I was speaking to a hairdresser recently, she was cutting my hair, and I was saying, well, you could volunteer, you know, because effectively what do homeless people need more than anything else to cheer them up is a decent haircut. So it doesn't have to be, you know, you don't have to feel that you've got to bring something new. And it depends really as to who you enjoy spending your time with. It may not be volunteers. We obviously have a learning disabilities team that, you know, we have befrienders who may just take somebody out and help people with their shopping, or, you know, take them for a walk, or have a game of football or a game of pool. So the variety is endless. We have a lot of guys who perhaps maybe would be more help, you know, like to get involved in like woodcraft and work, you know, work with the LD team, or do a bit of landscaping and sort of horticultural type stuff. You know, the list is really endless, to be honest. Or if you're a good cook, people always love learning new cookery skills and things like that. So if I think for me, although we do have a volunteer place on our website where you can actually look at a whole load of job descriptions, for me, I think it's just a case of ringing up the coordinator and saying, this is what I'd like to do, and, you know, what's the best fit, and having it starts with that conversation, really.
No, absolutely. I think that's really good advice. If you're interested in volunteering, find the organisation or the thing that you're interested in, and make a contact and develop that sort of relationship. Yeah. So brilliant. Thank you very much. That's all the questions there are. So thank you very much, Nikki. And I'll hand back to Sarah.
Okay, yes, and again, thank you, Nikki, for your presentation. Okay, moving swiftly on, we're now going to move on to a presentation from Sue Denmark, who is the volunteer coordinator for Care Home Volunteers. Over to you, Sue.
I'll just start by telling you a little bit about Care Home Volunteers while I'm getting some help to sort that out. Care Home Volunteers began several years ago by somebody who visited their father regularly in a care home, and noticed that there were some people who never got a visit from anybody, and so people were visiting their relatives and asked them to sort of support in the care home, and that just grew. So it started off with a pilot in Salisbury, and then developed into sort of Swindon, Chippenham. I work in the West Wiltshire area, which came on board a year or so ago, and now we've moved into Bath and North East Somerset. So it's grown from the grassroots, which is how I think some of the best things actually start from somebody's passion and opportunity in the community. So that's how we started. And what do we do? What we do is we work with care homes, and we work with individuals in care homes that don't have a regular visitor, and so it's really a three-way thing. There's a volunteer, a care home, and care home volunteers. And why do we do it? We started with just this hunch, really, that there were people that didn't get any conversations, any links, and were quite lonely. And this is all backed up by research. So there's the research here from the Older People in Care was saying that 40,000 older people have no external support or contact, and 2 in 5 residents don't have any regular visitors. So that's almost half of the people in care homes don't have regular visitors. And that may be because family live away, or because maybe lots of friends have died, and they just don't have any kind of regular support. This is the one that I find the most shocking, and it's from the Alzheimer's Society, that say that people in care homes have on average 2 minutes social contact in a 6-hour period. And if you think about how we all felt during COVID, how people felt isolated and lonely, you know, that they couldn't get out and meet people, to have just 2 minutes in a 6-hour period is quite a shock, I think. One of the things I would say is this is no way reflecting on care homes. Care homes do an awful lot, and some people really participate in the activities of the care home, and that's great. But it's about the people that don't join in, don't belong to groups or clubs within a care home. And the other shocking one, I think, is around, and this came from the Royal College of Psychiatrists, which is about depression doubling on entering residential care home. And I think that challenges that misconception, really, that, you know, once you go into care home, everything's sorted for you, you don't have to do anything, and life must be quite rosy. Interesting, there's another bit of research which also says if you give somebody something to care for when they go into a care home, something for responsibility, their health, both mental and physical, improves. So they actually gave somebody a group of residents a plant to care for, and the other group didn't have the plant. And interestingly, it was the group that had the plant to care for who did better, thrived, and were more active and had better mental health. So just little things can make a difference. So the research basically concludes that if we just have 1 hour of social interaction a week, we can improve the lives of people with dementia. Well, I think that just talks to anybody in care homes. I think that applies. Talking to people about what they're interested in, and that's really being very person-centered. What's really important to that person? And that helps to reduce the agitation and the aggression that sometimes is shown, and improves the quality of life. So the research is all there. So that's why we think we need to do what we're doing. So what do we do? Well, the most obvious thing is that we visit residents, and we ask relatively little of our volunteers in terms of the time commitment, maybe once a week and for an hour. And we recognise that some people might only want 10 minutes of visiting and might want to sleep. Other people might want to have an hour or more of a regular visitor. And in that case, what we do is ask our volunteers to perhaps meet and befriend more than one person in the home, so they can drop in and say hello to several residents. And it's really about friendship and companionship and shared interest. And what we want to do is we want to build something that's meaningful. So it doesn't want to be just that 5-minute chat about, you know, just very, hi, how are you? And then off. It's around about finding what's really important. And it is around working with the care home, because they do an awful lot, but we want to enhance that. So we do work very closely with care homes. We don't work with every care home. Not every care home needs our support, but we do work with the ones we work with. We have a good working relationship, and we really work to identify those people who most benefit. So through the pandemic, it's been a real challenge. Obviously all care homes were closed. I started my job in December 20 when we were going through that awful Christmas, sort of build up to Christmas, and then we couldn't meet with people. And so that has been a real challenge, but we have got around it in different ways. So we had a Just Giving appeal and got 50 tablet devices which went into care homes, so that we could try and maintain some contact with our volunteers. We have done lots and lots of card writing and all sorts of other things, just so that we can keep in contact with people. And we've also done some one-off events, which I'll talk about at the end. So we've got the same aims, but it's just a different way of doing it. It's been a challenge, and care homes are only just opening up again, although people think they may have been open for several months. COVID has taken a long time to work its way through, and in the last 6 months, it's mainly been around staff illness and staff having COVID that stopped them from opening. We know during that time there has been so much sadness and loss and grief for the residents, the people who are living in care homes, for the staff, and for our volunteers as well, because, you know, people they've built good relationships with, you know, sadly passed away, and they weren't able to say goodbye or see them. So it has been an incredibly hard time for care homes, as I'm sure you're aware. But we're gradually building back up, and I want to just, I think I've told you that, but just wanted to just let you know sort of what we do in terms of a volunteer's visit. So what our volunteers do is we identify somebody with a care home who might need a visitor, and they have a chance to have a meet and discover whether that's a good fit. Sometimes it may not be. Somebody may decide they don't really want anybody. But most of the time it's a very positive thing and people are really grateful. What I think is the magic of having a volunteer is they have no other remit. So they're not there to do any personal care. They're not there to administer any tablets. They're not there to enforce anything or change anything. They're really there for that individual. And they can do, for some people, it will simply be sitting and holding somebody's hand if they want them to. For other people, they may be really, really active and want to share lots of things. So they can do things like might do a jigsaw puzzle together. They might watch some TV or something on the iPad. There'll be a lot of activity. I just want to share one little story with you. We had a volunteer who, when he started, in his first visit, he mentioned to a resident that he had a motorbike and he'd ridden there on that day. And this older man was really, really enthusiastic because he had a motorbike all his life and was a passionate motorcyclist. So the next week, with the agreement of the care home and with the support of the care home, he bought his motorbike right outside, and the older man just got on with some help, and they switched the engine on. He was able to feel the throbbing of the engine, the smell of the fuel, and he really, really loved it and hadn't stopped talking about it since. So they have this real bond around motorcycles. And for other people, it may be just that they have some music, or simply describing things that somebody can see out the window. So saying, oh, look, the daffodils are coming up, it's spring. What do you remember about the spring when you were younger? And people will often start to talk about little things. I think the most important thing is that we're there to help people bring up the not just the memories, but also the feelings that go with those memories. So we know that some people won't remember things, but we know that sometimes we often touch people and that brings up the memory of something. So, when we're talking about music, we might ask questions, for example, of, what song reminds you of your holiday, your favourite holiday, or can you remember any theme tunes from TV? And then you kind of just go back to those. I used to watch TV with my children, or whatever it is. It just brings up those kind of feelings, and that's what we're really interested in. I'll share with you some of the quotes from our volunteers. What do they get out of it? Well, they get the chance to have a real conversation with somebody and to build a relationship, because lots of people now don't have access with their elders. They don't have their grandparents close by, or some other older people that they can go and visit. So one of the things that volunteers get is that mix with another generation, and also some people find it as a lead into a job in maybe social care or in health or in some other kind of form of employment. But generally, it's very much about people having that one-to-one relationship and really enjoying it. And our care homes, the care homes sometimes are a little bit hesitant to begin with because they're not quite sure what we can do and how much change we can bring. But actually, these quotes show that people do note how different people are after they've had a visit, and they appreciate the fact that we bring the community into the home. So people will talk about, with the older person, their family life, and they get that feel of what's going on in the community, or their volunteer visitor, what's happening with their family, their children. They can talk about all sorts of different things, so they get to know what's happening, which is sometimes missed. And as I said, we work in Wiltshire, so we would primarily just Wiltshire, but we recently extended into Bath and North East Somerset. So we're starting to grow there now as well, and that's taking off.
Can I just say that we're going to run out of time for any questions for you, Sue. So are you okay to wrap it up now?
Yeah, I'm just wrapping it up now. So basically,
Lovely.
just to say, what can you do to help spread the word? That's one thing about care home volunteers. And also, we have a big cardathon every Christmas, and we're always looking for people to write cards. So if you're happy to do that, let me know. If your organisation's happy to do that, that would be a really beneficial thing. So yeah, thank you very much.
Lovely, brilliant. Thank you, Sue, for your presentation. I know it was very last minute for you under difficult circumstances, but you've done a great job. Really informative, and I've got a really clear idea of what the amazing work that your organisation does. That's absolutely fantastic. I'm just going to pass it over to my colleague now, Anita, for any questions.
Just one question for Sue. How are you funded? Because a lot of people think, oh, volunteers, there's no cost associated. It's a relatively inexpensive way of delivering services. So I just wonder if you could enlighten us on how you're funded.
We are funded mainly through trust funding. So we've been funded, by the Tudor Trust, but also by other trusts. And that's something we're working on and developing at the moment, because obviously we want to have a wider base for our funding. So we are looking at other ways that we can, develop our funding. And we have a new chief executive who is taking that forward along with the trustees.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. That was the only question. So back to you, Sarah.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thanks again, Sue. Okay, now moving on, we have now Samantha Wilson, Digital and Communications Manager for Carers Support Wiltshire. Over to you.
So I am the, as Sarah said, the Communications Manager for Carers Support Wiltshire. We also work as Carers Support Dorset, and we support unpaid carers in Wiltshire and Dorset. We are part of a bigger network called the Carers Trust. So we are a partner of the Carers Trust, so that covers the whole of the UK. So what is an unpaid carer? This is a question we often get asked. So an unpaid carer is anyone who cares unpaid for a family member or friend who couldn't manage without their support. So that might be somebody who has a physical disability, a learning disability, could have an autistic spectrum disorder, a long-term health condition, a mental health issue, or a problem with substance misuse. Believe it or not, unpaid carers can be as young as 5 years old, which when I first joined this organisation, I have to say I found shocking, but it is sadly true. Carers could be helping with household tasks, administering medication, helping with medical appointments, providing personal care, or emotional support, or obviously a combination of all of those things. It could be that someone is doing that just once a day, so popping in quickly just to check how someone is. It could be a couple of times a week, picking up their shopping or perhaps a prescription, or it could actually be a 24-hour role that they do all year. So there are no time limits to being a carer, and every carer is unique. No one person has the same situation. Just some general kind of facts about caring. So this is mostly research from Carers UK. So 1 in 8 adults, so that's around 6.5 million people, are technically unpaid carers. Young carers, so that's anyone who is under the age of 16, are more likely than the national average to not be in education, employment or training. 3 in 5 people will be carers at some point in their lives, which again is, for me, was quite a huge statistic. In 2011, so the last census, there were about, I'd say, 6.5 million people in the UK that were carers. In Wiltshire, that was estimated to be 47,000 people. We fully expect that when the new census, the 2021 census data is released later this year, that figure will have increased dramatically, mainly because of COVID. 72% of unpaid carers say that they've had suffered mental ill health as a result of caring, and most unpaid carers, so 64%, have not been able to take any breaks at all in the last 6 months. So caring can be extremely rewarding, but it can also take a pretty hefty kind of mental, physical and actually financial toll on people. So what we want to do is we want to improve the life for all unpaid carers by listening and meeting their needs and providing information to give them choices about their caring role and make sure that they have a voice and can influence, you know, not only national policy, but also local policy as well. So what we aim to do is we want to make sure that carers have got improved physical health, mental health and well-being. We want to make sure that carers are empowered to make choices about their caring role. Sometimes somebody doesn't want to become a carer, and that has to be recognised and acknowledged. That carers are in the best financial position possible, that their voice is heard and recognised and valued. Another stat which again is enormous is that it's estimated that unpaid carers save the state £132 billion a year. That's more than the NHS. So their contribution is huge, and they often feel incredibly undervalued for what they do. We want carers to be able to influence services, so making sure that they're getting the services that they need and that they can access the appropriate support for them and they're cared for. We do this by providing information and signposting. We have a free helpline which people can ring. We have a website that has an information hub with lots of information available on that. And we also have groups and cafes, which all of our cafes are run by volunteers, amazing volunteers. So that's a role that we're always looking for new people to join so that we can open new groups. We've also recently joined forces with Dorothy House Hospice and now have new bereavement help points. So acknowledging that, you know, once someone's finished their caring role, they still need support to adjust to you know, living without they're cared for. We provide advice and support either over the phone or through our community engagement workers. And we make sure that we listen to carers and we gather their voices and feed that back to policymakers. As I say, collaborating with people like Dorothy House and other local charities to develop best practice and services to support carers. And we campaign at a local and national level to address key carer issues. COVID, as with all of us, as we've heard, had a dramatic effect on how we were able to support carers. So we launched a new service which is entirely run by volunteers called Here to Talk. So we supported over 300 carers through that over COVID. So again, it's a great volunteering opportunity. We've got a waiting list of carers waiting to take that service. So always looking for volunteers for that. We adapted and had virtual cafes and groups, virtual cookery events, which I have to say were interesting to host, and also virtual mental health workshops and things like that. Just some of the kind of quotes that we've got. I'm going to skip past this because I'd rather you watched a video at the end, which is a bit more powerful, but some quotes there from some of the people that we've supported recently. In terms of funding, we are a registered charity, so we do get some of our funding from trusts and foundations. We do a small amount of individual giving at the moment, so that's something we want to grow. Our core funders are Wiltshire Council and the local CCG. And as I say, we also work with partners, so Youth Action Wiltshire, Alzheimer's Support, Citizens Advice, Age UK Wiltshire. There's lots of them, but they're the kind of core ones that we work with. Looking forward, we continue to want to support as many carers as we can, to work with partners so that we can create, we can collaborate and create services to support them within their communities. We want to innovate. If there's one thing COVID has taught us, it's learning to innovate quickly. So we want to do more of that, to deliver services to people that we perhaps don't reach at the moment. And our ambition to work towards making Wiltshire a truly carer-friendly county. Right, so enough of me. I've just about got time to share this video with you. So this is one of our young carers, or young adult carers technically, called Selena. So I'm going to let her take over now for a couple of minutes.
My name is Selena and I look after my mum, who has cerebral palsy, fibromyalgia, agoraphobia and a lot of other mental health issues. I help my mum get out of bed, I help her clean the house, I take my siblings out and about when needed. I'm there for my mum when she is having a bad day and just needs to rant. COVID really affected how I would go out and about. I struggled to go out for about 1.5 years. I felt very isolated and alone. I started realising I was a young carer around the age of 14, 15. I started getting the help at the age of 16. They helped me by helping me go out and about and meeting other young carers at cafes. It helped me with my anxiety. If you are a young carer, don't be afraid to say you're a young carer. Come out and say who you look after and get the support that you need. Don't do what I did and struggled for quite a few years. Make sure you meet new people and make new friends.
If you need help, start here. You can contact us, speak to your teacher or a trusted adult at your school, or tell your doctor. Remember, you are not alone. There is support out there for young carers like you. So contact us today on 0800 181 4118 or visit our website at carersupportwiltshire.co.uk/young carers. Carer Support Wiltshire. We care because you do.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much.
Sorry. There you go. Sorry.
Want to go again? Thank you ever so much, Samantha. That was really, really a brilliant presentation. Really informative and insightful. I'm absolutely staggered that unpaid carers save state funding £132 billion a year. It's absolutely phenomenal, and it does go to show that probably a lot of people don't even realise that they may be even carers.
Absolutely, and that is definitely one of the biggest hurdles, is getting people to actually recognise that that's what they are. People don't, lots of people, they don't like the label, but it's not about the label, it's about the support that they are entitled to. It's just so important.
Brilliant. Right, so I'm now going to hand you over to my colleague Anita for some questions.
To apologise, my phone's going, but the question that I have is, how have things changed for you since COVID?
I'm actually, Jackie's just going to take a drink now. I was just going to, my colleague Jackie, I can see her in the corner. Jackie, are you all right to answer that one?
Yes, yeah, I am. I'm coming up as Samantha Wilson on the screen, so there's not two of Sam. It's just I couldn't change my name when I came in. So, yeah, I would say that certainly during COVID we were picking up on an awful lot of isolation. People held on to those feelings for a very long time. They were getting by, doing the best they possibly could. And since we started getting back out into the community again, carers are talking to each other, they're talking to their usual support networks, and they are incredibly stressed. So it's almost like the release valve. So we are picking up sort of, I guess, heritage frustrations. Obviously, people have managed for a long time without anyone coming into the home to support them, which naturally has an impact on them. Equally, they probably are less inclined to ask for help because they don't feel that they deserve it necessarily. So it's just encouraging people to look after themselves as carers so that they can support the person that they care for. But I would say that certainly the nature of the emotional toll is quite complex for many carers after COVID. So we're working more prolifically, I think, with organisations within local communities, trying to build the support network back in again for the carers who live there. So.
Brilliant, thank you. That's the only question I have.
Thank you.
Okay, just say thank you to both Samantha and Jackie for coming back with that, and again for such a brilliant presentation. I'm sure that lots of people will be in touch following the Expo, knowing a lot more about what you do. Now moving on to our final speaker, which is John Truss, who's the Programmes Manager at Age UK Wiltshire. So over to you, John.
Yes, afternoon everybody. Thank you for inviting me to speak about Age UK Wiltshire today. Age UK Wiltshire, we're a charity helping older people throughout Wiltshire and Swindon, and we help them with a number of services that we provide. One of them, our main service, is our information and advice service. Provides information and advice on a range of topics, and typically we help around about 4,500 people every year. So we're seeing huge demand for that service, and it continues to get a lot of people calling in looking for help and information. We also have a befriending service delivered predominantly now by telephone. We're supporting 170 lonely and isolated people with regular phone calls. The feedback we always get from those is the people really look forward to the calls. It's something to brighten their week. So we continue to do that. It's mainly delivered by volunteers as well, and it's all people living within Wiltshire and Swindon that we're supporting with that particular service. We also have something called a Living Well service. This is a service that we deliver in conjunction with various local GP partnerships, GP surgeries. It's a social prescribing service, which basically means we're working with the surgery to try and alleviate needs that older people have, that tries to reduce their reliance on the surgery. So we're looking to see what it is that they maybe could receive help with or support with that would lessen their dependence on the surgery. Typically we'll have a guided conversation with them, find out what it is that they need, what their issues are, and then we'll help them to link with groups, organisations, activities within their local environment that will engage them, return their levels of engagement with the local communities to a level where they feel no longer that they need so much reliance on the local surgery. We have a number of fitness and friendship clubs throughout the county. We've got 13 clubs at the moment, and that's set to grow over the next few years. Our fitness and friendship clubs currently support about 150 people regularly attending our fitness and friendship clubs, and they're highly enjoyable. People go along, they can do some very gentle chair-based exercises. They can also do lots of fun activities. There's tea, coffee, people can stay for a chat, and there's also Tai Chi delivered at these courses, at these fitness and friendship classes as well. We do offer a gardening service. Now that at the moment is only delivered in the south of the county in Salisbury, and it's specifically targeted at older people who are struggling to maintain their gardens. So we're looking for people who, without the help of our gardening service, their houses would flag up as maybe housing someone that's vulnerable. So if the grass is overgrown, things haven't been tended to, that can be a flag for certain people. So we're looking to work with older people who are struggling with their gardens in order to reduce that risk and maintain their gardens. And we have a community meal service. It's now been running for approximately 2 years. It's based in Swindon. It's based in the Toot Hill Community Centre in Swindon. We've got now eight delivery routes that we are providing over 200 meals a day to older people throughout the county. The service is going very well. And we're looking to potentially expand it and set up new hubs maybe in the west of the county and potentially down in the south as well in Salisbury, so that we can increase our distribution of meals and then also obviously increase the number of people that we're supporting with that particular service. We do also currently have a home from hospital service, which we've been delivering for the past few years. That service is ending at the end of this month, actually in 9 days' time. It was recently put up for tender. We were unsuccessful in that tender. It's now going to be delivered by another Age UK, actually our neighbours, Age UK Baines, who are based in Bath. They already run a home from hospital service in the Baines area, and they're going to be extending that service, taking over the work that we've been doing in the Wiltshire area. In terms of what older people are coming to us and talking about, a huge area that people are asking about is around benefits, income maximisation. People are very concerned about their level of income and interested to know how they can increase it. So benefits typically that we're talking about are attendance allowance, pension credit, also carers allowance. Those are key areas where people are contacting us about. And also community care is another large area where we see a huge number of inquiries. So that's around community assessments, community equipment, how to get help for caring, and lots and lots of people are asking around those areas. In terms of other areas where we see inquiries, we get asked about other money. That covers things like charity grants, food banks, debts, scams, and also people asking us about tax. And in terms of consumer, we're seeing inquiries around energy supply, utility providers, warm home discounts, energy price caps, and also internet access. Those are the main areas where we're seeing inquiries. Just a few graphs there just to show that over the last few months we've seen a significant increase in inquiries around these areas, and it reflects, I think, the changing nature of society at the moment. People are very concerned about their income, they're concerned about debt due to rising fuel bills. We're seeing more complicated inquiries as well. People are coming to us with more difficult problems that they're finding that they're not able to solve themselves. And I think it reflects the fact that as a sector, there is less help available now in the community for older people to turn to. Other agencies that were there in years gone by are now no longer there, so we're seeing much more demand that way, and we're having to have many more interventions with older people in order to help them resolve the problems that they're coming to us with. In terms of current challenges that we are facing, well, as already talked about it, the cost of living, it's incredibly difficult time for everybody, older people in particular. The population is getting older, which should be good news. Everybody's living longer, but it means that everybody's finding it harder to cope, and certainly with the amount of older people that's increasing, we are finding it more and more difficult in order to help the people that are coming to us. And also people are finding the challenges are around care needs, people, as I said, needing help to provide care for themselves, but also care for partners as well. And with COVID, some issues of those have been exacerbated and exaggerated. We're finding that older people, based on research that Age UK National carried out, older people are reporting to be, as a result of COVID, less mobile, they're also less confident, and there's been an increased rate of falls. So in terms of future developments and where we're going, we are currently reviewing our strategy. We've got a relatively new CEO, we've got a relatively new board and chair of trustees. So we're looking at our strategy and looking to say, well, okay, what can we do? What's our priorities over the next 3 years? We see very much we want to be helping people to remain at home as much as possible. It's what older people tell us they want to do, and we want to support them to do that. And also it's good if people can remain at home, because then that's reducing the burden on local services in order to help them. Prevention is a key area that we are looking to target, because if we can stop people getting to the point where they need so much care, then that's going to be, again, good for them, good for us, and good for society generally. Staying healthy is a key priority. In terms of our fitness and friendship clubs, we already have 13. We're looking to increase that upwards to, I think it's approximately 20 over the next 5 years. And we're also looking at how we can provide more support services at home that will, again, enable people to remain in their own home and maintain their independence. So I already mentioned about the fitness and friendship expansion. So that's a very quick whistle-stop tour of Age UK Wiltshire and what we're doing, and happy to take any questions.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thanks ever so much, John. I'll just pass you over to my colleague Anita for some questions.
Okay.
So thank you, John. So we've had a number of presentations already from organisations that support older people, whether it's the Sounds Better CIC that do singing, for people with like breathing conditions or poor breath or respiratory conditions, and also Alzheimer's support this morning. And I'm just wondering how you engage and how you collaborate and connect with those other services, or whether you do connect with other voluntary sector services to support those older people.
Well, as has already been mentioned, we're working quite closely with Carer Support Wiltshire. We're looking at things that we can do with them, and we're currently exploring the possibility of delivering a sitting service to give some relief to carers. So that's something that we're looking to do at the moment. And I think, as we recognise, and I'm sure most organisations operating in the third sector recognise, that collaboration and cooperation is going to be key to how we progress in the future. I think it's important for us all to recognise that we can't do everything and we shouldn't do everything. We all have very specialist services, so the more that we can work together, the more holistic that we can be. So wherever we can, we work in partnership with other organisations, and services that we're delivering currently, we're working in partnership. Our Living Well services are delivered in partnership with local GP surgeries, for instance. So partnership is a key aspect, I think, for us, and I think it should be a key aspect for all third sector organisations, voluntary organisations going forwards.
Excellent, thank you. And one other question. What have been the main challenges? I'm assuming, like most voluntary organisations, you've seen an increase in demand. So what have been the main challenges for you as an organisation? Everybody thinks Age UK is a large national organisation, but those in the sector know that you're a local independent organisation.
Well, the challenges have been to match services to demand, and also to adapt in terms of the resources that we have. We are a small organisation. We have a relatively small staff team, but we also, we have a number of volunteers. That's fantastic. We couldn't do what we do without our volunteers. But it's being able to deliver what we can do with the resources that we have to the demand that we're seeing, and those are the challenges. It's difficult, but we're coping with it, and we'll continue to do so.
Thank you, John. That's all the questions that I have.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you, John, for your presentation. That's really brilliant. And thank you to Nikki, Sue, Samantha and Jackie, as well as you, John, for your amazing presentations and questions today. One of the core things that came out of John's presentation as well is around the cost of living crisis. And it doesn't just mean the focus on the service users that are being affected by the cost of living crisis. And one of the themes that's starting to emerge from our Expo this week already really is around how that's also affecting the organisations and the volunteers that work within them. One of the common trends at the moment in the sector is just the difficulty to recruit volunteers. And those volunteers are bound to be affected by the cost of living crisis in terms of changing their circumstances, time to volunteer, etc., along with the organisations as well, trying to meet the increase in demand. So collaboration is a really good technique and a tool moving forward for organisations in the sector to work better and to work smarter sometimes, to face these new challenges ahead of us. So I'd just like to finish and say thank you again to our speakers. I hope you've enjoyed our Expo today. We are back again tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock with some more speakers, and again tomorrow at 3 o'clock. So please follow the link on our webpage if you'd like to come along to any further sessions. And thank you ever so much for coming, and see you again soon. Thank you.